Welcome to Nice and Blunt. I'm Adam Riancho, and it's Monday. Time to look ahead at Week 16's NFL schedule, make some win-loss picks for every game. But before that, I got to own up to a very, very poor record. I need to take a big L this week. I go 6-8 in Week 15, but obviously I failed. I'm going to be honest with you. I was comfortable with the idea of failure last week because I do care about this overall record between y'all and me. And this time last week, I was down by 11 picks. I felt very desperate. I felt like if I didn't close the margin to within like 7 or 8 picks in this week, then I really had no chance to ever claw my way back. And I would clearly lose the record against y'all this season. So I took some bold calls. I needed to disagree in order to have any chance to come back. And while I did maybe go a little overboard on some of them, I genuinely did believe that these teams could win and would win. So I was wrong. I go 6-8. Now my record is 139-83 overall. And the games I got wrong were pretty bad. The Niners-Rams game was a close one. If Debo didn't drop that pass, maybe they scored a touchdown. Maybe they would have won. So I got that one wrong. The Rams did win. I took the Niners. And then I also took the Titans, who did start off the game pretty hot, 14-7 in the second quarter. But then Burrow really came on strong. And Levis just kept turning it over. Levis got benched, and Levis was the bad pick. So Titans did play a little bit better than most people thought, but it really wasn't close. In the third quarter, the Bengals had put up way too many points. At that point, it was just garbage time. So bad pick by me, but I needed to take a swing. And then the Dolphins lost off of bye. The Texans did take care of business at home. Tua played like shit. The Colts lost. They had a chance to win if Taylor actually scored that touchdown instead of fumbling it. Maybe at 20-7, the score would have been a much different situation, and maybe the momentum would have been too strong for the Colts to lose. So that was a weird game. Fourth quarter really decided it. And the Broncos won with less than 200 yards on offense. I think the Colts really gifted them that win. Good news for Denver. They probably make the playoffs because of it. But I was wrong there. I also took Detroit later in the week. I did pivot. I originally took Buffalo, but it was a coin flip in my opinion. I deserved the L on that one. The Cardinals also lost. That was also a very bold pick, but I genuinely thought that maybe off the bye, Drake May could improve enough to get the win, but I was very mistaken. Bad decision by me. No risk it, no biscuit. Didn't work out. I was wrong. The Chargers pick, though, I was actually right last week on Monday. I did go into the week thinking that Tampa would win. They're more desperate, and I was worried about the Chargers offense. I had tickets to the game. I wasn't going to root against them. So on Saturday, I did switch the pick, and it did work out against me. The Chargers did lose. Their offense was completely shut out in the second half. Tampa hung 40 on one of the best defenses in the NFL. Did not see that coming at all. But the Sehawks did not win either on Sunday night. They really got blown out in the first quarter. Like immediately, the entire energy in the stadium was deflated. The Packers started off red hot. And although they had a chance to hang around late, once Geno got hurt, it was the nail in the coffin. The Seahawks had no chance. They will not make the playoffs now that Geno is out. So Seahawks lost. The 6 games I got right were the Eagles over the Steelers, the Jets over the Jaguars. I did also pivot to the Cowboys over Carolina, and that one was right. I pivoted on 4. 2 of them were right, 2 of them were wrong. It was a wash. Overall, 6-8 was the record I was destined for. But the Raiders obviously took care of business. The Commanders barely squeaked out a win over New Orleans, only a 1-point game. And then the Chiefs had that game locked up from the beginning. Jameis Winston played like shit. So I went 6-8. There's still 2 games left. I took the Vikings and the Falcons, and we'll see what happens. But I kind of feel like I'm probably destined to go 7-9. Odds are I'm wrong. On one of them, it's probably that Raiders-Falcons game because Cousins plays like shit. But you guys did pick up 4 games on me. I was hopeful I would be 10-4. You guys would be 6-8. And it was the complete opposite. I lose 4 more games, and now the margin is even wider. I'm waving the white flag. There's no chance I can catch you now. With only 139 in my favor, I'm down 15. You guys have 154 and 68, and with only 3 weeks left, there is no effing chance I get 5 correct that you guys don't in every single week rest of the way. So I called a Hail Mary. It didn't work out. I was feeling desperate, and I did fail. But failure is not the end of the world as long as you learn from it. And if I learned anything, it's that maybe being desperate doesn't actually pay off ever. Like, look at Dan Campbell kicking an onside kick down in the fourth quarter when it's not the final drive. Like, what are you doing? It really cost them like any chance to get back into it. You don't get desperate until you're probably going to lose in the first place. So I'm a loser this week. After last week's record, I deserve a big L, and hopefully I get better. I'm trying to learn from my mistakes, but last week my Hail Mary was picking the Titans, Patriots, and the Sehawks. None of them worked out. So that's a bummer for me, and you guys did do way better, and at 154.68 you are maintaining a 69% win percentage. Very, very nice. It's the third straight week that you guys are at 69% in terms of accuracy this season. So very nice picks. If you want advice for gambling, I recommend you stick to the polls. In general, they have been a lot more accurate than I have this season. Last week, though, these were your bets in terms of heaviest favorites to closest margins of victory. You guys did take Washington at like a 92% rate. Washington did win. That's all that matters. 2019, not that convincing, but they still probably lock up a playoff spot. The next biggest margin was the Ravens over the Giants, and that one was obvious. The Bengals over the Titans at 89%. Yeah, that worked out. The Vikings also at 89% over Chicago is yet to happen, so we'll see what happens tonight. The Broncos were picked at 85%, so were the Cardinals at 85%. The Falcons at 83%. We'll see what happens tonight. But then the Chiefs at 82% also did pay off. That was the correct pick as well. The Jets also at like 79% was correct, but the Panthers at 69% was the wrong pick. As favorites, the Carolina Panthers let most of us down. The Eagles, though, did take care of business. They were picked at 67%, and the Packers also at 64% was the correct pick as well. The Lions were chosen. That was the wrong pick, though. You guys got that one wrong at 63%. Most of you chose the Lions. The Bills got the win. But then most of you took the Rams, and that was the right pick. 62% were correct on the Rams. But then two of the closest margins, the tightest picks this week, were incorrect themselves. The Chargers were chosen at 54%. That was the wrong side. The Bucks were correct. But then lastly, the tightest margin on the week at 51%. You guys did take Miami. That was the incorrect bet. So 10-4, a pretty impressive record. It could have been better at 11-3, but only a handful of you did take Miami instead of Houston. That did sway it in favor of the Dolphins. So those are all the poll results this week. A bit of a recap for week 16. And speaking of a very poor performance, I also went 1-5 against the spread on Saturday. If we look at my Monday picks, I was 3-3, but then on Saturday I took two of them out that would have been right, and both of the ones I put in were wrong. 1-5 feels like the punishment I deserve for the week I gave you in win-loss picks. But 42-39-1 on the season is pretty mediocre at best. Like, damn, this week really cratered anything I could brag about against the spread. But in general, I wasn't ever really like that good in the first place. So barely above 500. Let's try and keep it that way. But yikes, rough week for me. So let's move on. That's the one thing that I really like about fantasy football and football in general. It's a weekly game, and from my perspective, you have a shot at redemption every new week that comes around. After a tough L, you can make up for it with a win. So this time next week, it will be my birthday, and hopefully I'm going to have a much more positive outlook on the accuracy of the last week, and I need to make these picks very, very intentional overall. I do not want another 500 or worse week this week. If anything, I need at least 11 correct to feel good on my birthday. So let's get to it. Let's take a look at this week's schedule, make some win-loss picks for all of those games. On Thursday, we have a divisional game where the Chargers are hosting the Broncos, and I do not believe the Chargers will win. I think they can still make the playoffs at 10-7 easily if they win out. After this game, they have a Patriots matchup, then a Raiders matchup, and I expect them to win both of them. Even at 9-8, they probably have the tiebreaker for the 7 seed over the Bengals. So this is a must-win for Denver. They have the Chiefs in week 18 and then a desperate Bengals team in week 17. They could lose the next 2 games. If they don't win this week, that means they would lose to the Bengals and miss out on the tiebreaker at 9-8. So this is actually still a very important game for Denver, and although they almost lost last week, I think they may have been looking ahead a bit to this matchup. That's why they were kind of falling flat on offense last week. So I worry about the Chargers. I watched them in person twice this season, and last week they looked really bad without J.K. Dobbins. Their run game is terrible. So I think Surtain will lock up Lad McConkey. I really don't trust McConkey in this matchup. And without him, they really have no other weapons I trust at all. So a low-scoring game, a lot of defense in my opinion, but the Denver Broncos will tough it out. I'm going to take Bo Nix and Sean Payton over Herbert and Jim Harbaugh. Historically, Herbert is 4-4 in his career against the Broncos. He never sweeps them. And last year, the Chargers got swept by Denver because he didn't play in the second game. And I think odds are it will be another split this season. Usually it is, and they won the first game. They're not going to win the second one. The Chargers never beat playoff teams. And earlier in the year, the Broncos were not quite a winning team at that point. Now the Broncos are much more experienced, definitely feel better about them, and I think given they're a playoff team as well, just like the Buccaneers, the Broncos will come into SoFi on the road and beat a division rival. Broncos win, Chargers lose. On Thursday, I think Bo Nix plays very well. On Saturday, we have the Chiefs hosting the Texans. An interesting matchup here because Patrick Mahomes, I don't think there's any chance he will play. He got really banged up, tough tackle last week, and I don't see a reason to force it. So weird game on Saturday. They have a Christmas game next Wednesday, and maybe they look ahead. It's against the Steelers, but I do think that the coaching of Andy Reid will still really pay off. I think in this weird spot, the Texans are going to be kind of desperate themselves, and I just haven't seen enough from CJ Stroud to really feel confident in them winning matchups like this. The Chiefs are still a Super Bowl caliber organization, and from top to bottom, I do trust the roster more than the Texans, with the exception of the quarterback this week. But I trust the coach by far more than DeMeco Ryans. I'm betting on Andy Reid here, and I'm going to take the Chiefs at home over the Texans. In Arrowhead, I'm not going to bet against them. I think they still lose 2 games max. We'll get that number 1 seed in the playoff bye. I think Carson Wentz can easily win at least 1 game as the starter. He beat the Niners last year, starting with the Rams in Week 18. And although that was a backup quarterback as well, he beat Sam Darnold. And we think Darnold is playing really well this year, maybe even better than Stroud. So Stroud has been overhyped this season, not lived up to expectation. Back in September, we thought he'd be way better this year, and I just don't believe in the Texans right now. The Texans are not on the same level as the Chiefs. So even as they fall down a bit with Carson Wentz, I'm going to take Kansas City. I believe in Andy Reid. Give me Andy Reid to figure it out. Give me the Chiefs at home over the Texans. But then in Baltimore, with a recent bye just a week ago, I think the Ravens really play well, really step up. They have a very good game plan dialed up against Pittsburgh, who are very banged up. Not only do they not have George Pickens for the second week in a row last week, but TJ Watt went down, and I don't think Watt will suit up. I think maybe they get him for that Christmas game against the Chiefs, but not in this one, not on the road at Baltimore. So while Mike Tomlin has a winning record against John Harbaugh, in the last 11 games, the Steelers are 8-3 on the Ravens. I think this one goes in favor of Baltimore. I do not think they get swept this season. I think Lamar will step up. He's missed more than half of those 11 games. Lamar is only 1-4 in 5 career games against Mike Tomlin. So I think he'll figure it out. Usually he doesn't play 2 games against them any season, and this time I think it will go in their favor. I'm going to take Baltimore to win. I think their offense is too much to handle. The Steelers are too banged up. They're going to be looking ahead as well. And usually on short rest, Mike Tomlin does not perform well. I think after last week on the road at Baltimore, they lose again. Give me the Ravens to win. I think they will win the division. The Ravens get the tiebreaker with this one. On Sunday, we have a matchup between the Falcons and the Giants. And with Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito going down, we're expecting Tim Boyle to get the start for the Giants. So this is a perfect spot to pivot to Michael Penix as the quarterback. If there's ever a game you want for a rookie quarterback making his debut, it's against the team you expect to have the number 1 pick in the draft next season. So the Giants, not going to be competitive at all. Traveling into Atlanta, definitely give me the Falcons. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is, whether it's Cousins or Michael Penix, the Falcons will win. And maybe we do get Penix. I could envision Cousins playing so poorly against the Raiders that in the second half they insert Penix, they look better on offense, and they keep him as the starter for this game. On Sunday, the Falcons will win, even if the rookie is the starter. But in Chicago, this one you're probably going to disagree with me on, but I am going to call an upset. I'm going to take the Bears over Detroit in Chicago, because the last 3 years with Justin Fields, the Bears won 2 games against Jared Goff. Since Goff has come to the Lions, he does not play well when traveling to Chicago. Against the Bears in general, it's always a tight game. Even on Thanksgiving, if not for terrible execution as Eberflus got fired, maybe the Bears would have kicked a field goal and at least forced overtime in that game against Detroit on Thanksgiving. So the Lions are crumbling right now, kind of falling apart in terms of health, and with no Dave Montgomery in a revenge game spot for him, I think that could be a huge factor. If you recall, last season, the Bears had the lead against Detroit, and with Montgomery, they came crawling back. They did win on a last-minute touchdown with Montgomery. So the Bears always keep this game close. While maybe it still goes in favor of Detroit, I think the Bears at worst will cover the spread, and I'm actually going to pick them to win straight up, because that one loss in the last 3 years was also just a 1-point game, and I actually believe that the Bears have a chance. Maybe I am over my skis on this. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but I am picking an upset. This is my upset of the week. I have one more, and I'm taking Chicago to actually win over Detroit, because Jared Goff has not been tested by the weather this season. He has 14 games this year in a dome, and most of them have already taken place. This game is not. It's going to be in Chicago, the windy city. Wind might be a big factor, but the weather is also going to be very cold. The temperature in this matchup will be 25 degrees in Chicago on Sunday. So Goff is not the same quarterback when conditions are relevant, and I could really see without Montgomery, the run game not being the same. And if they can lock up St. Brown, I don't know if Jameson Williams can step up enough. They need Tim Patrick, Laporta, and JMO to really play well in this matchup. So Gibbs cannot do it all himself. If St. Brown is limited at all, I worry about the Lions offense in this matchup. Their defense is just so depleted by injury. I think Caleb can play well. You know they're going to step up against such a good opponent like this. Like when it's a rival that's usually at the top of the league, a lower end opponent usually really plays up to competition. And I think the Bears will give them a very tough test. I'm going to go with Chicago. I'm going to take the upset. It feels a bit misguided, but it's not impossible, and I do think it can happen. So I will take Chicago. It's a bold call, but fuck it. Give me the Bears over Detroit. I think the Vikings will actually win that division. This loss opens that door for it to happen. Give me Chicago over Detroit. In Cincinnati, the Bengals, I think, will definitely beat the Browns with Myles Garrett banged up, Jameis Winston playing like shit, Nick Chubb out for the season. I don't see a chance for Cleveland. I think Winston will turn it over too much. The Bengals already beat the Browns earlier this year, and I know historically Joe Burrow does not play well against them. The last 3 games, he does have a winning record. He is 2-5 in his career against Cleveland, but after going 0-4 in his last 3, Joe Burrow has won 2 out of those 3. He's 2-1 in those 3 games. So I think it's going to be 3-1. I think Joe Burrow has figured it out. And without a solid pass rush, if Myles Garrett's not available, then I'm definitely taking the Bengals. I'm going to take Joe Burrow at home to beat the Cleveland Browns. I think they win out, but still at 9-8, the Bengals miss the playoffs. The Colts are going to host the Titans, and Shane Steichen has not lost once in 2 years against Tennessee. He is 3-0 against the Titans. So I think it's going to be 4-0 after a close game up until the fourth quarter. The Colts did play well, just not good enough to win. And maybe Richardson is just that bad, but given their quarterback situation on the other side of the ball, I'm not convinced the Titans are that much better than Indianapolis. So I believed in the Colts. I don't think they're a playoff team anymore, but the Colts will win. I think they do continue this win streak. Steichen will beat the Titans once again, 4-0 against Tennessee after this game. Give me the Colts on Sunday. But then the Jets are going to host the Rams, and it's an early game window. The Rams are traveling cross country. There's always a chance when that happens that the road team does lose, but there's extra rest, and the Rams have by far the better roster, definitely the better coach and quarterback. I'm obviously going to take the Rams. I'm not going to be that delusional and tell you that the Jets will win. I don't think it's possible with the Jets. Definitely give me the Rams. They're a Super Bowl caliber team. The Rams could still win the NFC this season. So I think they win. Give me the Rams on Sunday over New York. But in Washington, the Eagles travel, and the Commanders actually play the Eagles very tough historically. Even Sam Howell was able to push Hurts to overtime last year, but they still lost. And odds are that's going to happen again. I don't think the Commanders actually have a chance here. I think the Eagles will get the number 1 seed in the NFC. It feels destined to happen at this point. They can beat you any way they choose, whether it's with Saquon in the run game. If you lock him down, we saw last week Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown can beat you as well. So I'm definitely taking the Eagles. While it's possible, I'm not going to bet on it. The Commanders are not going to win. They're a good story. It's a fun year to watch them win, but it's not going to happen this week. The Eagles are definitely better. They're on another level. And Jalen Hurts is 6-2 historically against the Commanders. And one of those losses is kind of illegitimate. If you recall, Doug Peterson benched him in his 4th career game, week 18, against Washington. They lost that game, and Peterson got fired. So that one doesn't really count. Otherwise, Hurts is 6-1 against Washington. I expect this game to be his 7th win in that division rivalry historically. So definitely give me the Eagles. The Eagles are by far the better team. In Carolina, last week we trusted them to beat the Cowboys, but they were favored, and this week they are not. I actually think this is the better situation to be taking Carolina to get the upset. I think they need the element of surprise when the opponent understands that not only Vegas, but everyone betting on this game thinks they're going to lose. Against the Panthers, you really want to prove the doubters wrong. So I think it was a really nice situation for Dallas last week to upset Carolina, and odds are I think the Panthers can bounce back. They've been very competitive overall lately, with the exception of last week. So I think against the Arizona Cardinals, it's possible, and weather is a big factor here. While it might be raining, it's not guaranteed. The temperature is going to be pretty low, not totally freezing, but 38 degrees in Carolina. That is not good for the Cardinals. The Cardinals have played terribly when weather's a factor. It was raining in Green Bay. They put up only 13 points. It was raining in Seattle. They put up less than 10. And while it might not be raining in Carolina, a desert team like this traveling cross country, early window, I don't like it. I'm going to take Carolina to win. I feel like they're due for a game to go in their favor, and they have 2 divisional games left against the Buccaneers and Falcons. They will not win either of those games. This week is their last chance, in my opinion. At home, I'm going to take the Panthers to upset Arizona. My bigger, bolder upset would be Chicago over Detroit, but this is my second one. My second upset of the week would be the Panthers over the Cardinals. Last week, I didn't believe in Arizona. I still think Kyler will fumble it away at some point. Kyler is still not a quarterback I fully trust. So give me Bryce Young and Dave Canales to figure it out. Probably doesn't happen, but it is possible. I'm willing to take that chance. Give me the Panthers over the Cardinals at home. I think it works out this time. The Seahawks are going to host the Vikings, and this one is pretty obvious, especially with no Geno Smith. I will not take Sam Howell. No fucking chance. So give me the Vikings. Brian Flores, the defense, really going to lock him up. It's going to be raining in this game kind of heavily as the game progresses. The rain will intensify, and maybe Darnold plays poorly in that situation. But I trust the defense a lot. Even in a low-scoring game, I trust the Vikings to tough it out. They will get the win, and I also think they have a shot to win the division. Week 18, they play the Lions. The winner of that game, I think, will win the NFC North. And now I think it's trending in favor of the Vikings. They win this week at Seattle and build that momentum. Vikings get the dub on the road at the Seahawks. But in Buffalo, this is the most obvious pick of the week. There is no chance I'm taking New England to beat Buffalo. Josh Allen's the MVP. It's going to be snowing, and the Bills usually play even better at home. When it's in the snow, they kind of have an advantage. The Patriots understand this type of weather. It's not the same situation as the Niners in the snow, but still the Patriots are not the same team. The Bills are far better. The Bills will own the Patriots in this matchup. That one's obvious. Definitely going to be Buffalo at home. But then in Las Vegas, kind of a toss-up, a pretty irrelevant matchup with the exception of a draft position for both teams. I think the Jaguars will win. I'm pretty convinced that the Raiders get a top 2 pick. If they have any shot to get Shadur Sanders, they need that number 1 pick. They need to keep losing. I think they lose this week against the Jaguars. I love Brian Thomas. He's a great player, and I don't trust Desmond Ridder. I expect him to be the quarterback again. While Brock Bowers is really impressive, I think Brian Thomas will go toe-to-toe. I'm going to take the Jaguars. I think overall they are the better team. They probably fire their head coach regardless, but still give me the Jaguars on the road. I think the Raiders will get that top 2 draft pick after all. But the Dolphins are going to host the Niners in a game that, in my opinion, kind of resembles that Ravens-Chargers game that I went to. It's a little brother versus a big brother type of matchup. While they're not literally related, the mentor Shanahan versus the protege Mike McDaniel is as close as we have to that situation throughout the NFL. They're very close. They know each other's game plan very well, and I don't expect that many surprises on offense for either team. So maybe the defenses really step up, but I think in general it's more of a shootout. And after last week with Tua playing so poorly, I'm not going to take the Dolphins. It could go in their favor. They're playing at home, but weather's not a factor, so it's kind of a wash in general. And with extra rest, both teams off a loss, I think after a snake-bitten season, the Niners are a bit more desperate and willing to step up their game. So I will take San Francisco. It's a big game for both teams. I wouldn't be shocked to see the Dolphins win, but I'm going to take the road team. I'm going to take the Niners. I think Shanahan gets the best of his protege, Mike McDaniel. I'm going to take Brock Purdy over Tua. Niners get the win. Going to be a weird situation in terms of the cap next year. Do they pay Purdy or not? I wouldn't. But I think this week he gets the win over the Dolphins. The Cowboys on Sunday night will be hosting Tampa, and this is an obvious pick. Definitely give me the Buccaneers over the Cowboys. The Cowboys play like shit at home this season. Usually we thought they were a good home team, but this year it's not the case. They're 1-6 at home, and they're much better on the road this year. So Cowboys going to lose. I saw the Buccaneers demolish my Chargers at home, and in Dallas, the Cowboys will not stand a chance. Baker and Mike Evans going to torch them. Bucky Irving and Rashad White also going to put up a ton of yards. So Bucks are getting hot. They can beat anyone. They beat the Lions this season, and I do think they beat the Cowboys. Definitely give me the Buccaneers to win this week and win the division when it's all said and done. Give me the Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football. But on Monday, my birthday, the Packers host the Saints. The temperature will be 20 degrees in Green Bay. Very cold game in this one. So maybe we get Derek Carr back, but I doubt it. I think we'll get Jake Haener again. And even if Derek Carr does get the start, it'll be an overwhelming victory by the Packers. Maybe not the highest scoring game. Usually in that type of weather, it's kind of a low score, but the Packers' home field advantage will be overwhelming. Green Bay will win. And I think the Packers are a sneaky bet to actually make the Super Bowl. I still think they're viable. They're a very underrated team in their conference, but they might finish with like a 13-4 record. The Packers are not a team you want to face in the playoffs. So watch out for them. I still think they could make the Super Bowl if they get some upsets in the playoffs like last year. The Packers are deadly. So they get the win this week against the Saints. That's pretty obvious. But rest of season, I would hate to face off against Green Bay. And those are my picks this week. Across the board, straight up, I'm taking the Broncos on the road over the Chargers, a divisional game that means a lot. They lock up their playoff spot. The Broncos win, and then the Chiefs also win. I'm betting on Andy Reid over DeMeco Ryans, even with Carson Wentz. Give me the Chiefs. The Ravens beat their boogeyman. The Steelers will not get the win. The Ravens, with a recent bye, have a good game plan. Lamar gets the dub. In Atlanta, the Falcons, even with Michael Penix, will get the win, but Kirk Cousins probably retains the job and gets the win himself. But Chicago, I'm taking them in an upset, my upset of the week. Close game here, but with the injuries to Detroit, I'm willing to bet against Jared Goff in the cold. Weather will be a factor. Cincinnati will win over Cleveland. Joe Burrow is starting to understand how to beat the Browns. And then Shane Steichen is undefeated against Tennessee. That will continue the Colts win at home as well. The Rams will definitely beat the Jets on the road. The Eagles also beat the Commanders on the road. And then Carolina is my second upset of the week. The Vikings, I think, will win on the road at Seattle with no Geno Smith. That will definitely go to Sam Darnold. The Bills definitely beat Drake May. The Jaguars, I think, beat Las Vegas. Vegas will get a top 2 pick and hopefully Shadur Sanders at quarterback next year. The Niners will beat Miami. Shanahan will beat his protege. And then in Tampa, Baker will really dominate. The Cowboys cannot win at home this season. And then lastly, the Packers will demolish the Saints. The Saints are not capable of beating a team like Green Bay on the road. So those are my win-loss picks this week. I also give you 6 picks against the spread every week. And here they are. I like 4 underdogs and 2 favorites. These are my picks. I'm taking Denver on the road over the Chargers to win straight up, and the Chargers are favored. The Broncos are getting 3 points, and I love that number. Definitely give me the Broncos plus a field goal. At worst, I think they push, but I think they will win straight up. The Chiefs are also underdogs, and that is shocking to me, especially at home. It makes no sense. I even think with Carson Wentz, they should be the favorites. So they don't cover when they're favored, but as underdogs, I think they will figure it out. Give me the Chiefs plus 2.5. I'm not going to bet against Andy Reid. The Lions are favored by almost a touchdown, and maybe I'm really wrong about this, but I think the Bears will at least keep it close. They usually win against Jared Goff in Chicago, so I think they can win straight up, but at worst, they will cover the 6.5 point spread. That's a lot of points to be getting in division. It's worked out for me in the past, like picking the Cleveland Browns plus 6.5 against Baltimore worked out. This kind of feels like the same situation. I will take the Bears over the Lions, but plus 6.5, they definitely cover the spread at the least. The Panthers, I think, will also win straight up. Another upset here. Give me the Panthers plus 4. I think they can beat Arizona. At worst, they lose by a field goal. The Vikings -4 will demolish the Seahawks. That one's definitely going to be a blowout by over a touchdown. And then the Bucks probably also blow out the Cowboys by over a touchdown. I think 4 is a good point spread to bet against. So I'm taking the underdog Broncos plus 3, the Chiefs plus 2.5, the Bears plus 6.5, the Panthers plus 4, the Vikings -4, and the Buccaneers -4 as well. Those are my picks this week against the spread, and I doubt I'll be changing any of them on Saturday. Last week, I learned my lesson. Monday was way better, and I have been finicking and changing some of these too much lately. I will probably just keep it as is on Saturday. So those are the 6 picks, all my picks straight up. And if you enjoyed this video, if you made it to the end, then hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And I will see you next time. My name is Adam Riancho, and thank you for watching. Nice and blunt.